Alright, it's been a couple days since the oil change and my tires arrived. Although the tubes have not yet. They're supposed to arrive today. I ordered these from Rocky Mountain ATV. And I went with the Tusk D Sport. They're quite knobby, as you can see, since I'll be doing mostly off-road riding or at most dirt roads, occasional tarmac. I went with something pretty off-road aggressive. These apparently don't last very long. They're very soft and the tread blocks are small compared to the gaps. So I'm not expecting these to last more than 1,500 miles, but for me that would probably take a long time to accumulate, and it's worth it, I think, for the off-road traction I'm going to get. So I'll get these from where they are now onto the bike. To do that, since I don't have a tire mounting machine, I'm going to take off the wheels and take them to my local BMW motorcycle dealership. And normally I shy away from taking my work to the dealerships because they're so expensive. However, I'm getting keys cut there anyway. They're the only ones that can cut a key for this thing that I know of. Since I have to go there anyway, I'm okay taking the wheels along with me. And their prices were actually pretty competitive. Quite competitive, actually, assuming I take the wheels off first. So hopefully it's not too hard to take the wheels off. I've watched a few YouTube videos. One guy says he did it in 4 minutes, taking the back wheel off. And I hope that I can do it in maybe 4 times that, since it's my first time. And then for the front, I don't think it's too hard either. I had to order a torque set to get this guy off. The later model GS is like this one. They've got a slightly different setup. If you've got an early model F650, they're a little different. But I think I just take this off and then maybe unscrew that. I don't know. And then pop it out. Pop out the axle, I mean. And then I have to be careful for the brake rotor. Getting that out. I also read, don't lay your brake rotors flat on the ground when you take the wheel off. Lay them rotor side up so they don't get bent. So let's give it a start and we'll see how bad I mess it up. One more thing I'll mention is this wheel stand back here. I ordered it off Amazon. It was, I don't know, 36 bucks, I think. And it's worked out well so far. It hasn't tipped my bike over. It came with these black feet that hold onto the swing arm, which is good for oiling and lubing my chain, which I'll be doing later in this project. And just for keeping it vertical, which saves space in my garage, so I've got more room to put my car right here, as opposed to tipped over like it was before, like this Honda. So far happy with it. It's not fancy or expensive. Hopefully it doesn't collapse one day, but I'm going to use that to suspend the rear. And then for the front, I'm going to jack up on the skid plate and engine frame area to get the front off the ground. And as a backup, I'm going to suspend some straps from the ceiling. In addition to the wheel stand and the jack I mentioned, I'm going to suspend some straps from the ceiling and hold the bike up that way. So if it does have the stand collapse or the tips over on the jack, at least the strap should keep it from falling over. At the very least, keep it from crashing hard on the floor. But I think the straps will keep it from falling over. So let's see how it goes. It's time to take off the front wheel, and as you can see, I've already done that here. I started, of course, by removing that little Torx head from the front forks. I used a T45 for that, and then I used an Allen tool to remove the main axle by unscrewing it from where my hand is there. And out that came without a problem. You can see that one was a 8mm Allen. And wiggled it out with no problem, and I noticed that the spacer dropped down, so it would have been easy to lose that if I wasn't paying attention, but thankfully I saw that. And moving on to the back, I used another Torx T45 again, and I loosened up the chain tension on both sides. I counted the same number on each side so that I could kind of get it somewhat aligned and get the chain tension right when I'm putting it back together again. Took the big nut off, and that was a 24mm, I believe, and was able to get it ready to be removed. To make my life easier, I wanted to take off the rear kind of mini fender, you'd call it. It's just 4 T25 Torx heads, so I used a drill on that, got that off easy, and put them safely in the jar. To get the main axle bolt out, I took a hunk of wood and just hit it a few times using a hammer to try to push it out the other side, and then I kind of gave the tire a few kicks to loosen up the chain fully and get that out. From there, I went around to the other side and pulled the bolt out with my hands with a little bit of wiggling from my feet and hands on the wheel. It did slide out pretty easily, and then of course the tire dropped down and I was able to just roll it out the back. So far so good, and it's going pretty well. With the wheel off, I was able to take a look at the underside and really check things out. My red stand was kind of holding it up, but not really. I think the straps are doing most of the job. I had aligned my bike earlier to be directly under the rafters, of course on purpose to keep it as vertical as possible and safe as possible. So the straps combined with the jack and the wooden block I've got seem to be in combination working pretty well. The tires, as I took a closer look at them off the bike, were worse than I thought. Even the front, which I thought was pretty good, was not so good. There was cracks all over it on the sidewall, and they were definitely old. Even if they didn't fail, I'd be worried that they would be not very grippy and could be dangerous, and especially for a beginner like me. So glad I'm taking these off and replacing them. With the wheels and tires off, my next job was to take them to Motorworks Chicago. They're my closest BMW motorcycle dealership, and they've got a really cool building, lots of nice bikes inside. People there were super friendly to talk to, really cool guys to interact with. And on the way back, I happened to see an... All right, well, the good news is I got the axle through the wheel all the way through. I held it up with my feet here and kind of got lucky getting it through the first time. I was able to use my eyes and kind of see through there and see, okay, that there is an opening while I'm suspending it with my feet down here. And as long as I kept the wheel bearing on this side, on the rotor side, vertical, so as not to fall out or get it twisted, keeping the bearing vertical and the I guess washer on this side, keeping the I guess you'd call it spacer vertical was real important. If it became cockeyed or skewed, it would rub against the rotor, and that would of course make the wheel unable to ascend up. But luckily I was able to keep that spacer vertical, suspend the wheel with my feet, get an opening here, stick that through, lift up the other side of the wheel and get that side through so that on this side I could also see that there's a hole. But then I realized I put the bolt in from the wrong side. The bolt's supposed to go in through this way and the nut's supposed to come out on this side. Not sure if it matters or not, but that's the way I took it apart and that's the way the diagram says, so I'm going to switch it around. For now, as I push the bolt out, I have an extension here holding it in place so that I don't have to struggle as much, hopefully getting it back in. And as I pull this side out, I'm going to stick this extension in there as far as I can. Transfer the bolt to this side while taking this extension out, of course, and then put the bolt through that side and push out the extension that's still over here out, so that hopefully I don't have to line it all up again and it stays in place. But newbie mistakes, and I'm learning as I go. I just needed to pay attention and think about it more rather than rush into it. So still going. Before I put on the nut and washer, now that the axle bolt is in the correct orientation, I'm just going to wipe these off, get some grease, because I think that might affect the torque setting as I tighten the bolt down with the torque wrench. I don't want it to get an incorrect reading. And I'll probably check this one more time just to make sure the tension's correct. Getting there. I sprayed the chain with some greased lightning and went over it with this brush in a whole bunch of different directions. Got the brush off Amazon. I'm sure they're easy to find. This way, and on top, and on the back of the sprocket, you know, all over the place. Chain already looks better. Still a little rusty, but it looks a lot better than it did. So next I will put the chain lube on and see how it looks after that. Alright, it actually seemed to get quieter and easier to spin as I put the lube on, so that's encouraging. Looks pretty fantastic. Still some seals that are popping out, of course, but good enough for now. Time to take it off these straps carefully and hopefully take it for a test spin. Well, I got it off the ropes and success. I just wanted to point out some cool events I heard about at Moto Works when I was picking up the tires. This ski resort has events all summer for motorcycles, ATVs, four-wheel drives. So I'd love to check those out one day, at least when I get a little more confident on the bike. But for now, the work is done. This part's over, and I'll be enjoying it for a couple weeks and maybe doing a bit more work with some brake fluid flushes, but nothing major. I think it's ready for the summer. Thanks for watching.